All right. I might get you to move over a little this way. There we go. Perfect. All right. Well, happy March 1st. March 1st. Friday, March 1st.
Friday.
I'm
Always
wondering,
good to have a Friday.
This weather, do you feel like it is, March has now come in like a lion because it's so cold, or is it no because it didn't like storm?
I don't know. The weather is the weather.
I mean, that's true. I know. I'm gonna bet on it being. I want to say lion just because it's so cold. Like it is bitterly cold out there today.
Very cold out there today.
Yeah. We waited outside of the library for just a couple minutes and it was very cold.
I mean, I was dressed for it. I was standing out looking at the rink. You know, I'm
as long as you're dressed for it.
That's a critical.
It really is.
But
it is chilly out there
today.
Very chilly.
but
Yes,
it's good for the rink.
It is good for the rink,
Yep.
especially after yesterday's weather. That's the issue, I think, is because it was so warm yesterday, and now it's like feels like minus 22.
It has been a very interesting weather week. It's been it's cold to warm, the rainfall warnings, the wind warnings.
I know.
It's
and like a week ago, we had so much snow.
And now there's nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Well, we are here today with Councillor Ian McGrath of Ward 3 here in Truro, and we are going to chat with him. So if you have any questions, please let us know. We will read those out as we go. So Ian, can you, for anybody watching or watching this after, can you introduce yourself to our followers and tell us a little bit about your background and why you decided to run for council?
Certainly. So my name's Ian McGrath. I'm councillor for Ward 3 in Truro. I come from Newfoundland. Newfoundland, very isolated province, even in these modern times. So I've always had a strong sense of community. Mm-hmm. And when I came to Truro, I was still looking for that community, and I really found it. Like Truro feels like home to me. And why I ran for council was mostly to help make a difference and sort of give back to the community. Like I've always been an advocate for around housing rights, accessibility, public transit, active transit, environmental concerns. And it makes sense to me to be on the other side of the table and to help move those forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I feel like you hear that a lot from people that move to Truro from other places, like especially like other small towns and whatever. Is like they move here and it's it felt like home because it's there's lots going on, but it still has that kind of the small town feeling and community aspect.
Absolutely. I love how it's for me. It's very accessible. Yeah. It's, I walk and bike almost everywhere in town. It's one of those things where everything for me is within a 10-minute walk.
Yeah.
Right? It's fantastic. I've got the rail yard practically in my backyard. We've got Victoria Park. We've got the English street shops, the library where we are today. There's so much good in this town.
Honestly, it's so true. So Ian, for those watching that maybe don't know, because I wasn't even before I kind of prepared for this. Ward 3 is what area in Truro?
So that's a bit of a tricky question because the wards are shaped weirdly.
Okay.
So first I'll start off and say that there are 3 wards. Each is represented by 2 councillors, and we have the mayor. So I work alongside Deputy Mayor Kathy Hinton, which is a joy to work with Kathy, honestly.
You guys always look like you're having lots of fun.
We get along well.
You really do.
We're able to work together. Like she's asked me for some help recently with something she's doing for International Women's Day.
Oh, fantastic.
So because of my technical background, she's like, can you help me? So I'm working a little bit with her on that.
And then sometimes you go and shovel snow off of her roof.
Sometimes I shovel snow off her roof. Again, it comes from my background of community in that you just help people.
Absolutely.
The number of neighbors I met after Hurricane Fiona, I was straight into crisis mode. Like, who needs help? Right? Like, check in, talk to my partner. I'm like, hey, check in with some people. Who needs help? Have we heard back from so-and-so yet? And I'm out, just on the go constantly. But yeah, so back to your original question, sorry.
That's okay.
The ward it's a big ward.
Right, okay.
And it's a bit strange. So if we start farthest east, there's a section of Camden and Harmony that are considered part of Ward 3.
Okay.
So that area was annexed back in the 80s, I think it is. It's something to do with wanting to protect the watershed. So things that were kind of in the county but uphill of the watershed, the town was like, we need to protect that, and they annexed that land. So then if we come back a little further west, you start down by Patio Lanterns, the intersection of Prince and Brunswick, sort of where Ward 3 begins on that end.
Okay.
Carries over to the east side of Yonge Street. Currently the boundaries go down the middle of the road. So if you are on the east side of Yonge Street, you're in Ward 3. If you're on the west side of Yonge Street, you're in Ward 2.
Okay.
Yeah, Kathy and I have joked about annexing a couple of houses on some people that we know that we're good friends with. Like, oh, we should get you in the ward. Can we annex this house here, that house there? Bring them in. And as an aside, they're actually. It's part of the Municipal Government Act. They do redraw the boundaries every 10 years or so, I think it is.
Interesting.
Not sure if that might be wrong, but I know there is a period that have to be done.
Right.
So Ward 3, because we've seen such great growth in the last number of years, it's become unbalanced. So we have a lot of residential growth in Ward 3, so that means we now have more constituents than, say, each of the other wards. So the boundaries are being redrawn. So for the election upcoming in October, we're going to lose Normandy, Park, and North Street. So down by the stadium.
And they will go to a different ward.
That'll go to a different ward. I believe Ward 1, but
you won't know until it happens.
It's 1 or 2.
Yeah, right.
I haven't looked that closely into it.
Okay.
But I know we're going to lose some of those folks. So then again, back to our east-west. So that includes the other side of East End Crossroad. So for where Queen Street turns into Salmon River Road, Queen Street is within the town and also within Ward 3.
All right.
So I said we come west as far as Yonge Street. The library, all of Inglis, wonderful things in Ward 3. We've got the park, we've got the rail yard. When we get to Yonge Street, here at the library and the farmers market, the ward boundary takes a bit of a dog leg down Prince Street. So we here, Civic Square, are in Ward 3. The lawyers, Burchell McDonald, they're in Ward 2.
All right.
But Town Hall is in Ward 3 because now the boundary goes down Prince Street as far as Revere. I know, people are probably falling asleep at home.
Yeah, well, but but it's great for people to know, because if they aren't really, they don't particularly know, hearing you say that, and then they're like, okay, well now I know where I'm at, and if I have an issue or something to talk about, you or Kathy should be the people that I would reach out to about it.
Well, honestly, I would encourage anybody. There is a map on the town website.
Oh, great. Okay.
Lists all the councillors and the mayor, all of our contact information. But for an example, a business owner in Ward 2 reached out to me just because she's seen my stuff on Facebook, and she's like, "Hey, can you help me with this?"
Right.
Not technically my ward, but I looped in the councillors, Councillor Fleming, Councillor Thomas. I'm like, hey, this is in your ward,
right?
And it was a bylaw thing. So we're like, and they're like, I'll handle it. They took it and they're running with that file. So regardless of who you reach out to, that councillor is, if it's not their ward, they're going to loop.
I think that's really important for people to know, honestly.
It's, and that's the thing, we represent the ward. Like, I represent Ward 3. That doesn't mean that I don't care about the rest of the town.
Sure, of course.
Council has to look after the entire town.
Right.
We have to be concerned about all of the people, but it does imbalance things a little bit if say I'm getting 90% of the feedback or the complaints, and then it's an unbalanced thing, and that's part of why the wards exist.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Excellent. If you are just tuning in, I am talking today with Councillor Ian McGrath of Ward 3 here in Truro. So Ian, you've shown, as you mentioned too, a strong passion for public and active transportation. How do you believe initiatives in this area can enhance mobility in our town? And I know you'd mentioned it would help contribute to reducing congestion too, if you want to speak a little bit on that.
Sure. So what causes congestion is, I guess, the root question.
Sure.
And the root question is, or the answer is, cars. And I own a car. I'll preface that right away. And I actually drove today, which we'll get into a little bit later on why. But it's one of those things where cars take up a lot more space. So for every single occupant vehicle, that's however many meters long of the car, like 4 or 5 meters plus a little bit of a safety. Whereas public transit, say a bus, you can move the same 50 people
Right.
on a bus
One vehicle.
that would take entire blocks in cars. Now again, I say I have a car. I also drive. It's a useful tool.
Sure, of course.
But I think if I were to drive, just if this is the only thing I was doing today, just coming down to talk to you, driving here from my house and driving back, it feels like the wrong tool.
Sure.
It's a little like lighting a candle with a flamethrower. It'll work, but I'm not sure it's the best tool.
Right.
So for me, especially with my mobility, I would have just walked down.
Yeah.
Even in the cold, just be dressed for it. So, and back to how does active transportation improve mobility and improve
Well,
that
it's been such a, I know it's been such a, I've lived in Truro my whole life, and I know it's been a talk and an issue my whole life. Honestly, it's just never seemed to be something that either the town, it gets behind, or it just doesn't, the community doesn't get behind it. I'm not sure what it is that has been kind of the things that are getting in the way of it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. You say it's been an issue your whole life living here in Truro. How is it an issue?
Well, not even so much, I guess, obviously an issue for me. I just know it's been something that has been talked about for, since I can remember, that it would be good for Truro to have. Now I'm not sure I'm remembering correctly, but I feel like there was one time that there was public transit and it just didn't happen for a long time because not enough people were using it. I feel like I was young, so I don't remember, but I have that kind of memory of there being something at one point.
I have heard somebody say that we had public transit for all of 8 minutes in Truro.
Right, yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm not sure how that happened. I do know that in 2011, there was a public transit feasibility study done for Truro and surrounding area. The recommendation
2011, you said?
2011.
Okay.
I know that because we're looking at refreshing the feasibility study.
Okay.
Myself and Councillor Thomas made that motion in November.
Right.
To refresh that study. So we're looking for grant money basically to say, okay, let's refresh this study because things have changed in the last 13 years.
Of course, yes.
But one of the things, I asked for the old study, and it was provided by our CAO, and I read through that study because I'm boring. But I read this study. This is. I'm the people you need in office. I'm going to read the documents.
Right, 100%. Yeah, that's right.
I'm going to nerd out on some of this stuff. But it was recommended that we move forward with public transit. I'm like, well,
and then nothing happened.
Where is it? And I asked Mike. I'm like, do you know why this? But he's only been here for 9.5, 10 years.
Right. So it was before him
it's
even.
It's before his time even. I'm like, who was here that would know that?
Right.
So I don't know why it moved ahead. But what I hear constantly is, people who cannot drive. And that's a lot of people. That's everybody under the age of 16.
Right.
So you got school kids maybe want to go up to the power center to watch a movie. Well, how are they getting there? They can't drive. They've got to get somebody to chauffeur them around, right? And then that's just a pain, right?
Oh, don't I know it?
You've got a lot of elderly people who their reaction time maybe has slowed.
Sure.
I remember the day that my grandfather, bless him, when he took himself off the road because he's like, I'm not comfortable anymore.
There comes a time, yeah.
There comes a time where it's just he didn't feel safe,
right?
And I get that. And then there's anybody we talk about mobility, people who just cannot drive.
Right, exactly.
Maybe they have a vision impairment. Maybe they have a hearing impairment. Maybe there is a physical impairment, something that stops them from driving. And they're like, well, they're not going to be able to ride a bike. No, but you can. I was actually up at Douglas Street the other day looking at some adaptive bikes that they have up there, or one anyway. Yeah. They have one up there. It's basically sort of a chair with a rickshaw,
right?
And then an electric assist. Somebody drives it. Just a sort of a tandem thing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I will be trying that at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Watch for that.
Keep an eye on his Facebook.
I like to go out and play, but that's the thing. It's an equity issue, right? There are so many people who cannot drive.
Yes.
and they don't get to participate in society, and that's a really unfortunate thing. So that's my big push for accessibility and equity, because everybody deserves to be able to live their life.
Agreed. And even though Truro and surrounding areas, I feel like, we're not the same size as HRM, there are areas in Truro that, like you said, that people may want to get to that they're not able to if they don't have a vehicle.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
very important. So it is something that, like you said, you made the motion and you're trying to get some grants, and you guys are looking into doing another one of those reports.
Yeah,
Amazing.
exactly. And then when we look at active transportation, now the plan did pass an active transportation plan last spring. I obviously was not involved in that, but good on the town.
Yeah.
Because active transportation, generally when you look at the studies, there's anywhere from 10 to 15% of the population, you will never get them out of a car, right? Pry the steering wheel from my cold dead hands type of person. Yeah. That's great. Active transportation is not for you.
Not for you, yeah.
On the other side of the spectrum, which is where I live, 10 to 15%, the hardcore. Doesn't matter. We're gonna walk. We're gonna bike.
Right.
I bike in town. My partner bikes in town. We don't have the active transportation lanes, but we do it for our physical health, for our mental health, and just honestly because it's fun. I mean, there's so many benefits, environmental, all that stuff, but it's fun.
Yeah.
We're still out there, right? We're pushing. So what does that leave in the middle? Anywhere from 70 to 80% of the population who say, "I would if I felt safe."
Sure.
Now, take even half of that population. If they start cycling, if we can build an active transportation network and they are able to cycle safely, how many fewer cars on the road is that?
Right.
You want to talk about congestion, well, you want to reduce congestion, reduce the number of vehicles.
And I mean, anybody that's driven down Prince Street is going to know.
Anybody who's driven down Prince Street, anybody who's tried to leave the industrial park at the end of a day, anybody who's dealt with the 102, the bridge over Salmon River that's been under construction for seemingly forever.
Yeah.
That's some big stuff.
It's all impacted, absolutely.
It's all impacted. So the fewer people that we can have in cars, and it's one.
But we have to give people the option and the availability.
Have to have the option, and just to be 100% clear, because some people sometimes misunderstand things. No one is saying you have to give up your car. No one is saying you have to do anything. What we are saying is give those who cannot drive the option
making
to
it
participate.
available to the people that want to.
And the more people who want that and who opt for it, means fewer cars on the road, reduces congestion. It is a win for motorists. It is a win for those choosing active transportation. It is a win for every taxpayer who no longer has to pay as much maintenance fees.
Sure.
Right? Because that's what damages the roads. It would take some 160,000 bicycle trips to equal one big pickup truck. Yeah. For damage done to the road. So fewer vehicles means less maintenance, eases the strain on public works. Now we can take that money and put it elsewhere.
It benefits everyone. It's a
win-win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that there was just a JRTA drop-in session as well that took place earlier in February. I know you had said on your Facebook that there was a good amount of people that showed up for that. Could you provide some insights into what was discussed and any key takeaways from the event?
Sure. So it actually happened in this room, which is fun.
Excellent.
And it was a drop-in session. So it wasn't a presentation, so people could come in, like somebody, the very first speaker brought up some things and then left. And then later someone else came in. So there was, I counted about 20 people who came and went. Most stayed for the entire session. Yeah. But it wasn't a presentation, it was more of a Q&A, I guess. Right. So what they're doing, the Joint Regional Transportation Agency, or the JRTA, are a crown corporation. So they're arm's length from government. But they are working with provincial government in order to be able to provide a transportation strategy. What the purpose of that session was, essentially was, are we on the right track? Okay. Because one of them said, and I forget their names, I'm sorry, JRTA people, but he said... I'm sure they won't be upset. Oh, I hope not. They said, this is, there's a history where the government puts in a project and it's like, okay, here we are now, it's in, and people look at it and go, what is that?
Right.
This isn't good enough. This isn't going to do. I mean, obviously, some people are never going to be happy, but they want to make sure they're on the right track. So a lot of what was discussed, things about, reducing commuter traffic, say on the 102. Because Truro area, it's the third largest, population center
absolutely.
in the province.
And, everybody drives through here to get any other place that they want to go, basically.
We are the hub.
Yeah, that's right.
The connection. But this is right. This is the thing. There's a lot of people pass through here. It's people stop here often on their highway trips. There's lots to do in the area. Between things in town like the rail yard, downtown
absolutely.
shopping, the uptown shopping. Wentworth. People pass through here on their way to Antigonish or to PEI or to New Brunswick. It can be a lot. And that
as we all know, when that the construction was going on the highway there, how much people were getting off to come through town to try and miss that, and it just made traffic in town crazy.
It was bad, actually. And as a small aside, something the CAO mentioned the other day, because we're doing the Willow Street roundabout, that construction is starting this summer. There was an agreement with the province that they would not do additional work on that 102 bridge.
Oh, that's good to know.
Until we are finished with the roundabout construction,
great.
because both of those things happening at once.
It would just.
That'd be some bad news.
It would really,
But back to JRTA. Basically, there was a lot of things that were talked about. People wanting to be able to access provincial parks. Now, I think it might diminish the provincial park if a train line ran straight through it.
Absolutely.
That's not peaceful.
No.
But certainly, provincial parks should be accessible.
Yeah.
Again, why do you need to have a motor vehicle to use public, public facilities and public land? So that was brought up. A lot of the commuter things, people talking about rail, wanting some sort of commuter rail between here and Halifax. Is there still a number of people who live here, work in Halifax, and drive every day? I would not be one of them.
Me either.
I couldn't do it. It would be
Agreed.
Too much time in a car for me. Affect my physical and mental health, my financial health at this point with the price of gas.
Joke,
maintenance on the car, etc. And that's 3 hours for every day that I do that drive that I'm not here in my community.
Yeah.
So that again wouldn't be me. But if I could take the train. Do some work on the train, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
That, again, win-win.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. Absolutely. And I'm sure another big talking point, especially in your ward, is concerning the CN Bridge.
Yes.
So can you provide an update on that situation and any progress that's made towards resolution?
So, this came up at council recently.
Right.
The bridge, we were told, would be substantially complete around fall of 2024.
Right.
CAO was recently advised that's not going to happen.
Happening.
Now, the bridge, unfortunately, it is not in the town. So we are at the table with these talks, but we don't necessarily have a lot of pull or ability to invest in that because it's not on our land. It's not within our jurisdiction.
Okay.
But we're working with CN, we're working with the county. Both the town and the county are pushing CN to say, listen, instead of just replacing what was there, let's think to the future. Let's look ahead. Because we are all looking at active transportation.
Right.
So I don't know if you've ever walked across the East End Crossroad Bridge.
I don't think I've ever walked it. No.
It was a little ugly. Like there was just like a grate, which was kind of neat to be able to look down at the trains.
Sure.
But for a lot of people to walk over that, it's a little it's a little anxiety inducing. But and it was narrow.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got some of the trucks going through or the bigger vans.
Absolutely.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
So the idea is make it wide enough to allow proper, two-way traffic.
Absolutely.
Allow some separated, sidewalk for pedestrians, allow separated bicycle infrastructure to connect to what is eventually going to be here in the town in the county.
And I feel like it's one of those areas that you didn't realize you used it as much as you did until it was no longer there to be used. And then it was like, oh, I did use that more often than I thought I did.
Because we do hear a lot about that because now anyone who's in Salmon River, wants to get over to, say, Brunswick Street or
Yeah,
up to the park
all the
or
way
wherever,
around.
now they got to go all the way around. So people on Queen Street are saying, well, there's so much more traffic. You know, people on you know, around you know, Brunswick and Prince, there's so much more traffic.
Yeah.
There's so much, because people are having
To go all the way around.
to go all the way around. It's-
Absolutely. If you are just tuning in, I am here with Councillor Ian McGrath of Ward 3 in Truro. If you have any questions, please let us know and we will definitely have a look at those, and Ian will do his best to answer those as well. So, Ian, there have been reports, I know, about vehicles driving on Wood Street soccer field as well as other places. Can you give us an update on efforts to address that issue and to ensure the safety of the field for its intended use?
Yes, absolutely. So Parks and Rec actually put up some concrete jersey barriers
okay.
recently. That should prevent the trucks from getting out. You know, the trucks, the Jeeps, the four-wheelers, whatever is going out there, should prevent them from getting through.
Okay.
And I would say, yeah, I mean, you mentioned and other places. Like, I know I saw some reports from people out in Camden area, the blueberry fields that were driven over. The cost to the blueberry fields, right? The, you know, the loss of plants, the loss of harvest, even here in Truro, you know, the damage potentially done to that
Well,
field.
that has to be fixed for people to be able to use it for its actual intended use.
And if we are going to fix it, that costs money.
Absolutely.
That is money, and that is time. Money and time that, again, could be better spent elsewhere. We are coming into budget season, and, you know, we want to add public washrooms downtown, right? Because
oh, what a great, wouldn't that be funny, because we were here filming something for Alicia's show in the fall, and the cameraman had to use the washroom. The library wasn't open. It was the day the library wasn't open. He had to end up walking, I don't know where he walked, somewhere over the Esplanade to be able to go and find somewhere to use the washroom.
Yeah, and if we remember back, I know it's a mere 4 years ago, but remember back to the early days of the COVID pandemic where everything was closed.
Yeah.
Where do you use the washroom? All the businesses are closed. And it really highlighted the need for public washrooms. Like, it's a critical piece of infrastructure. But again, it's money. Not just to build it, but to maintain it. Are you going to spend the extra expense for one of the self-cleaning washrooms and such, or do you have to hire somebody to look after it? Is it going to be locked because it's not looked after by the town during certain hours? You know, there's a lot to consider there. But that's something, if we have to spend, like, say, $500,000 fixing up the soccer field, for example,
that didn't need fixed to begin with.
That shouldn't have needed fixing to begin with. That's money that we could have spent on probably two fancy public washrooms.
Yeah.
You know, so things of that nature. And if anybody out there is watching who enjoys that sort of thing, or you know the people who are out there driving on the soccer fields and destroying that public infrastructure,
let them know.
For the love of all that is good and holy, please get them to stop.
Yeah,
like this,
absolutely.
It really impacts everyone. Because
I also feel like when people, whatever mind state they're in, when they choose to do something like that, they're not thinking of ramifications like that.
No.
You know, especially not in that moment. And, you know, should they be? Maybe. But to hear somebody actually put into perspective, you know, like, now we are spending so much money to fix something that didn't need fixed when we could have used it on something that would have really benefited the town.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's have a look here. Sylvia says, how does one start the annex process to become a resident of Ward 3, being on the west side of Yonge?
Hi, Sylvia.
She's a fan.
So
amazing.
I am going to call her out on this because she is one of the ones that we talk about annexing.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
But so continuing on with that question, so we've got those concrete jersey barriers in place. The residents in the area are on a bit of a heightened alert.
I am sure they are.
Truro Police Services said they'll do some extra patrols in the area. But again, if the police have to be patrolling that area, is there somewhere that's maybe, if something falling down elsewhere? Like, it's really an unfortunate thing that people...
It's a domino effect when it comes to that kind of stuff.
It really is. And our budgets are limited, right? That's...
Yeah, it's not an unlimited amount of, you know, pot that we can just keep kind of dipping into. Unfortunately. Yeah. So, Ian, on to something kind of a little fun. Sure. So you recently tried out the sledge rentals from Douglas Street Recreation to use on the Caldwell Roach ice service just outside the library here. Why don't you share a little bit about that experience with us? And, you know, what do you hope to achieve by promoting this activity?
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looked fun. Your video looked fun. Yeah,
we did have fun. So for anybody who's not aware, the Douglas Street does have a lot of equipment rentals, both summer and winter.
Yeah.
So winter rentals include snowshoes, cross-country skis, skates, etc. I'm going to see if I can get myself a pair of skates for the weekend too, since it's been cold. But they also have these sledge rentals, which you may have seen in the Olympics for the sledge hockey. Joe and I are not at that level. I was going along trying to figure out, I'm like, I don't know how to turn this thing.
That's okay, I just keep going.
Just hit the boards and let the boards turn you. But what I hope to achieve really is just showing that it's available.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was available. Joe, bless him, he is a mobility advocate. He's head of mobility riders. He does a lot for getting people hooked up with scooters. A lot around mobility and accessibility.
Okay.
So he and I, we're coming at the same problem from different angles. Yeah. Right? It's all about accessibility and equity in the town. So he's going to be my guinea pig for a few things. Sorry, Joe. You'll see us out on that bike at some point. But it's one of those things. I was like, the responses I got on that video, people didn't know it was available.
Absolutely.
They did not know. So that's what I hope to achieve is just spreading that awareness and increasing the participation and that equity in the town. Yeah,
absolutely. Getting people out and enjoying, people may know that there's all these activities that are available, but, they don't have the right equipment to access it. Well, it is available and, maybe you can't skate. Great, get a sledge and try that out, right?
I skate very poorly. I will say that. I am probably a better sledger already than I am a skater.
That's fair.
So
I probably am too, honestly.
it's fun for me, right? But I mean, between the town and the county, and I believe they said they have like some 25 to 30 of these things.
Amazing.
Right? It's great. And the idea, I believe, was for sledge hockey, right? So they do have, some of the schools are doing some sledge hockey things.
Okay.
They have sledges available, usually at the stadium, which unfortunately is still closed due to the hurricane damage. But they have these available. Now, what's another barrier to getting it? Well, if it's up at Douglas Street and the ice is here.
Yeah.
I don't see me strapping one of those to my bike and bringing it down here.
Yeah, right.
So today I drove here because from here it's to the Douglas Street Rec Center.
Yes.
I am going to get as many sledges as will fit into my car.
Oh, amazing.
/ however many Douglas Street will allow me to take. Looking for 4, Ashley.
Oh,
if you can.
That's great. Yeah, come on down. What time do you think you'll be out there?
I'm aiming for about 1:30.
Okay, there you go. So 1:30.
Yeah, if anybody wants to come down and try it,
You're already going to have them here. So that saves them having to go to Douglas Street and try and get it down here. They'll be here already and they can try it out.
Absolutely. So I'm hoping to have Joe here. I know Joe put a post in Mobility Riders group on Facebook and a bunch of people are like, oh, that sounds great.
That's awesome.
It is cold out there.
It is.
Hopefully
so
everybody
cold.
comes out.
It is but the cold makes great for the ice.
It's great ice.
Dress for it and you'll have a great time.
Yeah, speaking of dress for it, if you are coming down to try some sledging, if you have some elbow pads or a helmet, highly recommend it.
Oh yeah, okay.
Just because if you do tip over on those,
that would be hard on
your hips are already sort of protected by the seat.
Yeah.
But the elbow and the head are going to be the riskier.
That is good notes to have.
Yeah.
So I mean, weather permitting, but I feel like you shouldn't have an issue out there on the ice day. You said you were out there talking to a couple of the employees, and they were checking the ice just to make sure that there wasn't any, water kind of in between or anything like that. But it's pretty chilly out there, so it probably shouldn't be an issue.
Shale ice was the term that they used, where it's kind of frozen on top and bottom, but liquidy in the middle.
Crunch it down.
But it seems to be pretty good. There's a few small cracks. They didn't seem that concerned. I think the water from the Zamboni will fill it in.
Right. It shouldn't have any issue freezing.
It should not have any issue freezing out there today. It will be a little warmer this afternoon.
Yeah.
It's supposed to warm up to, I think, -6. balmy.
Yeah. Who cares that it feels like minus 17, but that's fine.
Yeah, but that's, like I said, I'll bring some of the sledges down. That reduces yet another barrier, and we are aiming for about 1:30. I do have a meeting at the fire hall at 1 o'clock because that's just the way life is right now. I'm cramming as much in as I can, right? And so that's for African Heritage Month. So
Well, speaking of that, February brought several different events to the Truro area, including African Heritage Month, Truro Long John Festival, coldest night of the year.
Yep.
So do you want to highlight some of the events that you were able to participate in and share your observations regarding community engagement?
Yes.
I know you were at a lot, quite a few.
I am going to miss something. I know I am.
You probably will, but that's okay.
So to any events or organizers, if I don't mention your thing, no shade. It's just
you were just
I was at a lot. And there's limited time to discuss.
Limited brain.
Well, given how cold it is outside, I'll start with coldest night of the year.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
So that's something Deputy Mayor Hinton now has been involved with for a number of years. I think she said this is her 11th.
Such an important event, yeah.
Right, very important event. So it was my first year getting down there, working the registration desk. But it's very important because especially that cold. We talked about how cold it was this morning while we were waiting to come into the library. Okay, now pretend you didn't have a house to sleep in last night.
Yeah.
You were in a tent somewhere, or you were huddled into a shelter with a backpack full of belongings, because the shelters just simply don't have the room to store a lot of things. So that's really important to see how that goes. I know some other jurisdictions have done a thing where they say, we're actually going to get our elected officials out and sleep, not necessarily outside in minus 20, but even if it's just in a gymnasium with the lights out and the heat off. Just get a taste of what people are experiencing. Right. And then, maybe you start seeing more change. But lots is happening in Truro right now. Haven House is doing a lot of great work. There's that church on Pleasant Street that recently opened a temporary shelter. And I look around at some of the vacant buildings in Truro and think,
there's so many.
That could be an emergency shelter, right? I look at so many empty buildings, and there's one in particular in my head that I'm like, every homeless person could probably be sheltered in that building if it was opened and set up.
Right.
Because the space is there.
Right.
So vacant building owners, let's do something with your buildings.
Yeah, keep it.
There's money to be made there too, to open the housing, to rent to people. It's anybody who's sitting there, I wish I had your money to be able to afford to let a property sit.
Just sitting with nothing there.
Just sit and fall apart.
Absolutely.
So that's coldest night of the year. The Long John Festival, that was another cold weekend. So I came down for the public skate, and that was really well attended.
Was it? Yeah,
yes.
That's great.
The town of Truro was here, so Parks and Rec.
Yeah, there was a lot going on that day.
Downtown Truro Partnership were here. I talked to Sarah Bell and Logan. Right? They had a lot going on. DJ Fish Guy and Serpentine Studios were up. They were doing these dancing.
In the bubble. It was so cool.
Super cool. The bubble was really cool, and they were doing some fire dancing and stuff. It was a really great event. There was free hot chocolate. I'm not even going to make a guess at how many people were here.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But it was very well attended.
It's so great to see the events like that be well attended. When just to know, because there's so much work goes on behind the scenes to put those on, to actually have the community come out and support it and enjoy it. It's really great to see.
Yeah, and I talked to a few people, and a lot of what I've been hearing is people think that this rink is the best thing the town has done in years.
Yeah.
And I would probably have to agree. Honestly, can't argue it. It's been pretty great.
Yeah.
It's been pretty great. And then the day after that was the Johnny's Fat Bike Ride.
Right.
So I went up to that because I bike a lot, and I have my fat bike. And Mike Knowlton, who works up there, he doesn't work up there. Mike and Keith, Pat and Aaron.
Yes.
I think it's just those four. The volunteers from Bike Truro.
Keep it going.
They have been doing a fantastic job at helping to maintain the trails.
Agreed.
Town
Shout
staff,
out to them for sure.
Shout out to Bike Truro.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the town staff, honestly, because town staff are also up
Very
there
important.
grooming. So there were points those groomers I don't think got a break. Because the town would run them during the day, shut it off, or even just hand it over to Keith and then be like, here you go. And like, I don't think they stopped for a while. But the trails were in amazing shape. I had the honor and privilege to lead a group.
Oh, that's great.
Because Mike was up there talking. He's like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do the full 10K. And I'm like, well, I'm in for the 10K. I'll lead a group. He's like, awesome. Ian's going to take a group. So we had a blast.
That's great.
I think we did about 16 or 17K on that 10K loop.
Did you really?
Because we were like, that was fun. Let's go do it again. Right? What time have we got to be back? Oh, we've got time. Let's go do.
Awesome.
We did extra, and there were some folks who'd come down from Ontario. She's a travel nurse.
Oh, really? That's fantastic.
Well, she's a travel nurse, so she's working in the area. They'd never been here before.
Oh, wow.
So I love being a tour guide in the rail yard. I really love showing off what the town has to offer. So that was really special for me. I really enjoyed that.
That is fantastic.
But it was cold.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was so cold.
Yeah. Me and my son went to the sledding event that they had at the Legion. That was a beautiful day. It was fantastic, and they had the hot dogs and the hot chocolate. It was great, but that was a beautiful day.
I missed that one, unfortunately.
Oh my goodness, because it was cold enough, but the sun was out, and it was just it was a gorgeous day for it. Yeah. And you said you were heading over to the fire station for an African Heritage Month event.
So I sit on the African Nova Scotian Community Strategy Committee, or ANSCSC.
Yeah.
It's we like our long names and our acronyms. And so I sit on that committee. I'm co-chair with Natasha Gray.
Yes.
So I didn't really have a hand in any of the thing. I can't take any credit for things that happened in February because I had been to one meeting before February. But it was great.
There were so many events through the month. It was fantastic.
Nevin's talk at the Historium I went to. Was that last week? Feels like so much longer
he did two different ones, He
did one Wednesday night at the Marigold. I understood it was going to be similar, maybe a little different. If you get the chance to go listen to Nevin, he's
absolutely
engaging speaker.
Yes.
Nevin really has you can hear it. He has a passion for that.
Agreed.
So Nevin did some talks. We are working with Parks and Rec are going to name a section of the trail in Victoria Park, for the Underground Railroad.
Wow.
This is a cool initiative. I want to talk about this one a little
bit.
So the trail will start, if I remember correctly from the map, will start behind the Truro Middle School, because there is an access there by the outdoor classroom. It goes down toward Five Corners, sort of does a lollipop loop, and then back again. So that's the Underground Rail Yard. It spans both rail yard and the lower park.
Wow.
So you'll see the purple signs and the green signs. And the plan is to not put in signboards, but little smaller ones like QR codes. So you can pull out your phone.
Oh, that's very neat.
And it'll bring you to a website. And it's going to be basically, I think, stories from the children at the Truro Middle School talking about what they've been learning about African heritage, about the Underground Railroad and things. And the wonderful thing about a QR code instead of a signboard is that it can be updated.
Yeah.
So now, in 2024, the story is this for those kids. And now for the 24-25 school year, maybe you've got some different stories from those kids.
Oh, that is amazing.
Right? Oh, it's such a great idea.
That is a very great idea.
It's fun.
Yeah.
We also had the Elders Luncheon, which is
always amazingly attended.
It was very well attended. Jude Clyke spoke there, another engaging speaker. Jude and I definitely shared one thing. He was basically in that move it or lose it kind of mentality. He's like, we have got to move our bodies and we have got to engage our brains. We, like that physical and mental fitness is key to a healthy and happy life. So, I do hope to reach out to Jude at some point and talk to him more about some stuff. Absolutely. It sounds like he and I are on the same wavelength.
I agree. Yeah, I know he is fantastic.
And then Dr. Lynn Jones was speaking as well. And one thing that she said that really resonated with me, she's like, we're doing a lot of organizing. There are a lot of things that are happening, but it tends to be just the elders who are doing it. We need more youth engagement.
Sure.
And I think that's true in all communities, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I will preface it by saying we go back to housing. It's different for the kids than it was, say, when I was growing up, or even when my parents were growing up. Like, it's the generational wealth gap is increasing.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to have time to volunteer when you are studying or you're trying to, work a job, and sometimes the time's just not there.
Yeah.
You've got to, when you're struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah.
So I just want to say I understand that.
Yes.
But if anybody does have that privilege to be able to donate some of their time, that would be fantastic, and encourage some folks. I'm not going to call anybody up by name on this one, but I think they know who they are. But encouraging some folks, especially any younger folks, to run for council in the upcoming October election, and especially people from the African Nova Scotian community.
So important.
It is. The diversity
Representation
is key.
Is important.
Representation, absolutely.
Yeah.
What else happened? Well, I mentioned the fire hall.
Yes.
I know there's a lot happening in February.
It's all right.
So this is something that I took on, that the committee has been working on, is to recognize Barber George Jones. So back in the early 1900s, I want to say 1908, if I remember correctly from Nevin's presentation, there was a huge fire devastating in the area, and George Jones was a barber here in Truro. And Nevin tells this story better. Go listen to Nevin. I'm summarizing.
Paraphrasing, yes, that's all right.
Paraphrasing to the best of my ability. But he has a lot of people in his chair, very wealthy and influential people, and he's like, this isn't right. And so when he's got these people in his chair, he's talking about, like, we should be starting a fire brigade. We should have a fire brigade. And so it's basically George Jones is credited back in 1908 with having been the founder.
How interesting.
Right, that key driver toward getting the Truro Fire Brigade, which I believe was 1916 when they got their
So it took like 8 years.
It takes
Wow.
Then as now,
Yeah,
government
of course.
gears grind
Yeah.
slowly. But in Nevin's presentation, he had a picture of somebody sitting in the buggy, right? The horse-drawn buggy with the machine, the pumper machine or whatever in the back, and the banner 1916, I think is what it was.
That's crazy.
If I got any of the dates wrong, I do apologize.
I mean,
I am not a historian, right? Like, I will defer to the folks at the historian.
It's the point of the story that,
So the point of the meeting is we're getting Nevin and Chief Curry together to talk about recognizing George Jones with something at the fire hall.
Wow.
Right? To recognize that, this is here because of George Jones, because of people in the community who said, we deserve better.
That's fantastic.
And driving to make that happen.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'm really excited about that.
That is very exciting. Well, Ian, it has been great talking to you today. There was so much to cover, and hopefully we get to do it again. Before we sign off, why don't you let anybody that's watching now or anybody that watches after the fact know how they could, get in contact with you if they want or need to do that.
Sure. Easiest way is probably email ian.mcgrath@truro.ca. I'm also on Facebook. I think if you look up the email, ianmcgrath.ward3@gmail.com. That was how that was set up, because I wasn't on council when I set that up. So I can be found on Facebook as well. If you just go to the Truro website under government, and I think mayor and council, you'll see contact information for Mayor Mills and all 6 councillors for the 3 wards.
And you're on Instagram as well?
I am on Instagram as well.
I mean, you have a pretty strong social media presence, so definitely check that out, and you can see what Ian's getting up to, and he's really great at kind of letting people know what's going on in the town over the month and the events that you're going to and all of that. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great day and a great beginning of your March, everyone.